Hello, welcome back to Mountain Bike Action. My name is JJ, and today we're talking about the Be More Bikes raised reverse stem. It's a funny looking thing, but it might just work better than you think.
What is this thing? The raised reverse stem is 150 millimeters tall from its base to the center of the bar. It has a negative 15 millimeter reverse offset, which puts the rider's hands behind the steer tube. It's compatible with both 31.8 and 35 millimeter handlebars with the use of a shim, and it's CNC machined out of 7075 T6 aluminum. The raised height puts the rider's arms at a better angle to the bars and heightens confidence with reduced likeliness of going over the bars. It helps the riders bend the arms more properly, giving the bike more room to move around. It also helps load the feet and keep the weight off of the hands. The reversed offset calms floppy feeling front ends on slack bikes, arcs out while turning to keep the rider's weight more properly to the outside of the bike, and helps the front wheel from tucking or jackknifing. We rode this stem on a lot of varying terrain and several different bikes, so we have a pretty good feel of the stem's capabilities in both helping and hindering proper riding techniques, as well as general riding capabilities. Our favorite place to ride with the raised reverse stem installed was at the bike park. The position it put us in was particularly helpful on steep, chunky sections, but it didn't have us shying away from the big bike park jumps either. But where wasn't it good? In contrast, our least favorite places to ride with the stem installed were on the more typical city trail systems, where the trails were generally more tight and winding through moderate rock gardens and navigating both up and downhill. So what's the reason? Degrees of steepness. With this stem, the degree of steepness in the descents we faced made a big difference in our level of confidence. The steeper the trail, the better we felt. In said steep sections, the stem enabled us to get into a much better ready position and transfer braking forces to our feet and legs, keeping the pressure off the front wheel and allowing us to lay off the brakes a bit more. We felt this advantage in steep rock gardens and rollers too, and were able to tackle them with heightened sense of control and confidence. In sections where the trail leveled out and slowed down, our comfort level went down, especially if we were trying to sprint for time. In these sections, the orientation of the stem rocked us back over the rear axle and, at times, made it hard to weight the front end going into corners. In sharp G-outs, our weight would rock back, making us feel like we might loop out. We had to stay far forward to compensate and found our arms to be bent at a crazy angle when the stem was nearly at our chest. Also, in those slower sections, we felt a certain disconnect from the front wheel as it felt too far away. Our reaction times, as a result, felt a little slower, which made the front wheel and the front end feel like it was wandering around a little in front of us. There was also a change in balance, and we found that our heightened center of gravity made choosing lines and sticking to them in slower sections a little bit more of a challenge. With the mention of the bike's balance with the stem installed, we can say we especially noticed this factor when climbing tight single track with lots of switchbacks and technical rock sections. When pushing through to complete a sharp switchback, one of two things would happen. Either we'd snag our bars on our upper thigh as we turned, or we'd stall out in the corner and lose balance with no chance to recover. More than once, we failed to successfully navigate sections that we usually have no problem with a normal stem installed. All other aspects of climbing were more or less okay. We could deal with the strange position the stem put us in on long, mellow climbs for the advantage we received on the prolonged descents. Even steep climbing situations, as long as they weren't too technical, were just fine. It did make it harder to get our body position forward enough to retain traction at times, but it wasn't unachievable, and again, we'd say worth it for the benefits of enhanced body position on the subsequent descents. The longer the climb and the longer and steeper the following descent, the more okay we were with climbing with the stem on. One of the biggest surprises we experienced while riding with a raised reverse stem installed was how well we could hit jumps with it. But there were still two sides. Long, drawn-out bike park jumps that had smooth and shallow transitions were a treat to ride with a stem. We had no problem whipping the bike out and even cracked an odd-looking table or two. Figuring out the balance was easy on those jumps, and we never felt uncomfortable. Jumps with short transitions or sharp, steep lips took more adjusting. We had to be more aware of our body position when hitting these lips, but that's not too dissimilar to the struggles many riders face when trying to find their balance on more technical lips. It's also not a stem we want on our bike when trying new tricks, though we could probably get used to it. Cornering with the stem brought a similar experience jumping did. On long, sweeping corners, it was excellent, and we were able to lay the bike over much more effectively than with a normal stem, and carry more speed. The stability in the corners was also excellent, and we felt confidence in traction that allowed us to lay off the brakes a bit. Tight corners were more difficult, specifically when we had to slow way down. We felt awkward, and our balance felt odd in these instances. We didn't feel like we'd jackknife as much as just tip over because of the state of balance we were placed in. Success in corners with the raised reverse stem came with speed, and if we didn't have any, it just felt weird, and we always felt a little too upright going through them. The other issue was with foliage. When there was a tree, branch, bush, or anything unpleasant to brush against too close to the inside of a corner, we realized we were much more likely to brush it with the lean angle the raised reverse stem promoted. But that's just something you've got to be ready for. In the general sense though, cornering on the descents was a great experience. It's certainly the reason the stem helps a lot of riders go faster on trails they know well. When utilized correctly, it feels similar to skiing, where your outside ski is weighted and you're able to guide and direct with your hips and head rather than forcing the bars around with your chest. So here's the million-dollar question. Does it make you faster? In our experience, no. That's not to say we didn't go out and do some timed runs with the intention of trying to go faster, and we certainly tried. We'd set a few times with the normal stem and then switch over to the raised reverse stem, and after a few runs of getting used to it, we would set a few times to compare. It didn't slow us down, and a couple of times were a couple of seconds faster, but generally we weren't. Maybe if we gave ourselves a little more time to get used to the stem before setting the time, things would have been different, but we didn't feel the benefit in speed for the most part. Just a bit of a growth in confidence on some of the steep stuff. Should you buy this $400 experiment in body position? Well, as always, that's up to you. The only way we'd put this stem on any of our bikes permanently would be if the bike were a dedicated bike park or shuttle bike, where we'd have to do very little climbing. For some people, getting over the disadvantages we mentioned won't be an issue, and for those people, we'll say, go for it. There's really a ton of benefits when facing the downhills, and we did enjoy our time on the stem in those situations. So, if you ride a lot of bike park, feel sketched out on steep descents or rock gardens, or just want to try something new, the stem is pretty cool, and its creator, Bronson, is even cooler. He'll be happy to answer your questions and give you his 2 cents on why he thinks it's the best thing since the invention of the dropper post. Also, he might be able to clue you in on some new things that he's got brewing in his little lab. Some things that you might just want to look into. We certainly are. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a thumbs up and a comment down below telling us what you thought. Also, don't forget to check out our monthly print magazine that's also available in a digital version. That's all we've got for you today. So, we'll see you out on the trails.